I'm Steve Rutt, and I can't say my own name.
That's a weird problem.
I know. It's such a stupid problem to have. But I do. Welcome to This Endorian Life, a Star Wars podcast from the Radio Meanwhile Network. I'm Stephen Red.
You just, like, the second before we started recording, you were like, I'm just going to say Steve Rudd. I'm not going to say Steven. We had a whole conversation about it. The moment of truth came and you still said Steven.
I'm Steve Rudd, and I have the memory of a goldfish.
So, but I'm confused. Why does saying the full name trip you up? Because it's your name. It's a name you were born with.
It is my
It's
name,
always been
but
your
I don't
name.
say my name. It's like my phone number.
Okay.
When people are like, "Oh, what's your phone number?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know my phone number."
That's a sign of the times, though, right? I mean, I could tell you, my friend Brandon, in 1992, his number was 962-8218, but I can tell you, I don't know your phone number right now.
Yeah, I don't know yours either.
It's in my, yeah. All right, so you can't say your own name even when it's written out.
I can't say my full name with a PH.
You can't say your full name. You could say Steve. You could say Steve, right?
Yeah, I got hung up on the PH.
Well, let's see how I do. I'm Nick Gunning, and we're following the Ewoks from Return of the Jedi to the Ewok TV movies and the 80s cartoon.
Well done.
Thank you.
You're good at it. You're saying your own name. That's
Thank
great.
you. Yeah, I like to try. I like to try regular things.
So today we are discussing the Caravan of Courage, an Ewok adventure, which originally aired on television. It was I don't know if it was made for television. I mean, it's George Lucas here. After his trilogy, made a made-for-television show. I don't know. Maybe the producer saw it and they were like, this is going to go to television.
I learned a little bit of a fact here. It was originally pitched to be like just a half-hour special, just like a quick little thing.
Really?
And all the networks passed on it. But ABC was like, yeah, we'll do it, but we want a full 2-hour chunk of time. And so they expanded the story to the 2 hours. And you can really feel that in the finished product. You can feel that you're watching a half-hour script.
It about an hour and a half too long.
2 hours. But anyway, I interrupted. You were saying television.
Sorry, on television, November 25th, 1984, and would be released theatrically after this in many countries, including Ireland, France, Germany, Mexico, and Japan. So interesting that the U.S. is not on there, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it was, or I don't know. They didn't do it theatrically in America, huh?
Yeah. No, I guess not. I guess not. I don't know. It's weird to see. I mean, to me, this is not a theatrical film. I can't imagine seeing it like in a theater. Mm-hmm. You know, we got spoiled.
I can imagine walking out.
We got spoiled last episode because we were doing Return of the Jedi, which is like universally acclaimed, where the Ewok movies have a bad reputation, and I'm suddenly figuring out why.
Well, when I was a kid, I liked it. I remember being like afraid of the giant, stuff like that. I mean, we'll get into that, but like, it's something that I remember, which means I had to have seen it on VHS or something, because there's no way I saw it on television.
This cleared up a lot of things for me because I haven't seen these in a long time. All of my memories are from the Battle for Endor.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a lot more memorable action, I think, in Battle for Endor.
Oh, definitely. Well, it's darker and it's weirder. I'm looking forward to getting to that one. But let's take a look at who's joining us in this journey this week. So,
let's dive right in. Go ahead.
All right. This was directed by John Cordy. He directed many TV movies, lots of TV movies, plus 13 episodes of Sesame Street.
You could definitely see that in there.
There you go. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can definitely see this on a great aspect.
So the story was by George Lucas, but the actual teleplay was by Bob Carew. And Bob Carew would go on and write 14 episodes of the Ewoks cartoon. So a little bit. I actually didn't realize there was any crossover between the creative teams behind the movie and the
we use that term loosely
cartoon. But yes, he wrote several episodes of that, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Tiny Toons, and right up to more recently with things like Clifford the Big Red Dog. So pretty prolific TV writer there. The score is by Peter Bernstein, and we do sample the John Williams Parade of the Ewoks music score from Return of the Jedi. What did you think of the score?
I don't know. I'm actually a very big score and soundtrack person.
Yeah,
and
same.
I got to be honest, this one, when you say that this was made for to be a 30-minute episode, it makes the music feel more like it is an episode of a television show, like Star Trek or something, like going to a planet, like Shore Leave, the episode of Shore Leave, where it's like a lot of flutes, a lot of like happy, So I don't know. It's a good filler, but there's nothing really stands out as far as thematic,
Yeah,
elements to the soundtrack.
I mean, like you, I tend to notice the score and things, and I
Hmm.
was kind of paying attention on this one, and it really didn't leave much of an impact on me. The thing
Yeah.
that stood out to me the most was that I got more hints of John Williams' like E.T. score than Star Wars. Did you?
Yeah.
It's like some
That
of
is
the main theme
yeah.
had kind of that na 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 na,
Yeah,
like
it's exactly what it is. That's what I
right.
was singing. Yeah.
So I
So
kept
that's
hearing
yeah.
E.T. So that threw me off a little bit.
Na,
Um,
na, 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 na,
because it's like, did somebody
na.
send this
Yeah.
guy the wrong score to listen to? But
Yeah.
I mean,
Whoops.
this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit. But I think the problem with this score is a similar problem with a lot of what's going on. Nothing feels like Star Wars here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the very basic things, the lighting in the forest, even the costumes for the Ewoks, the kind of creatures that you meet,
The locations
the
too.
look.
All of a
Yeah, I
sudden,
mean,
I was like, "Whoa, this is like they're in like a desert now. Like,
yeah,
what in
it's so
the
weird.
world?"
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
that's just part of it. Like, I think if you just turned this on and saw like the middle section of it, I don't think that you would automatically be like, "Oh, Star Wars." You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you'd make that
Yeah.
connection at all,
Hmm.
for many reasons. But the score is one of them because it's not reminiscent of a Star Wars score.
Yeah.
Let's look at the cast members here. And speaking of music,
Oh.
Eric Walker, who plays Mace, you, in doing a deep dive here, discovered that he's still a pretty active musician, right?
Yeah, he's produced like somewhere around like 3 or 4 albums.
Uh huh.
He has a new song that is really good. I,
Oh,
I enjoyed it. It's almost like it's taken him a few albums to kind of
okay.
really grow in his talent, but
Where are you
he's getting
where are you
there.
finding this? Is it on like
I found it
Spotify or
on
whatever?
iTunes
Okay.
as well.
All right.
So if you just
Well,
look up Eric Walker music, he's there.
okay.
Yeah.
Not a lot of acting credits. He was in episodes of Webster, The New Leave It to Beaver, The Marshall Chronicles, but not a ton of things here. Unlike the parents, the two actors who played the parents in this, even though we don't see a ton of them in this, very, very long careers. Fionnuala Flanagan as Katarine. She was very prolific with prominent roles on Lost, Murder, She Wrote, movies like The Others, The Invention of Lying, several roles across the Star Trek franchise. She was in Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise. Guy Boyd as Jeremit, which is not a name. I just want to say it outright. Is
Jeremy
Jeremit is not even a Star Wars name.
supposed to be Jeremy
He was,
or
Jeremy, but with a mid at the end.
yeah, Mitt.
He was in Knots Landing. He was in Quantum Leap. He was in Remington Steele, which I know you love.
Oh, I love Remington Steele. You know that.
And I actually just saw him very recently in the movie I'm Thinking of Ending Things with
Really?
Jesse Plemons. Yeah, he played a pretty prominent role in that. So that was interesting. Aubrey Miller here as Sindel. Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor are her only credits. That's it.
Yep.
Just these two.
Yeah.
Here's a real weird move. We got Burl Ives as the narrator. Like, why is this film narrated? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's
And
really
it's
not
funny,
necessary.
I forgot.
I've
Did you
completely,
forget?
oh, completely. And
I forgot. And when he started talking, I was like,
it doesn't
I put in
fill
the wrong movie.
I know. It
Yeah.
doesn't fill in a lot of gaps. And like you can't help but think of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because it's very much
Yeah.
like the style of narration is very similar. It's like, oh, Clarice and Mrs. Donner had to go back to it's just like
He sounded very
what are you
bored
doing, Burl
reading
Ives?
this.
Well,
Yeah.
that's just Burl Ives. We have, of course, Warwick Davis returning as Wicket, a role he plays across the franchise, not involved in the animated
Yes.
series that I've come across so far. But, of course, Return of the Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, and the two Ewok movies. We have Mr. Warwick Davis suiting up. Plus, of course, the movie Willow, which is going to get a new TV show reboot on Disney+, and the series Life is Short. I know, I'm excited about that, too.
Yeah.
We have Daryl Henriquez, who replaces Adil Crooms. Adil Crooms did the voice in Return of the Jedi. Here we have Daryl Henriquez taking over. Low Gray, also we have a new Low Gray. So Bobby Bell is in the suit instead of Mike Edwards.
Okay.
Bobby Bell was also in Return of the Jedi as one of the Ewoks, but he didn't play Low Gray. He was also in the Garbage
Oh,
Pail
interesting.
Kids
Okay.
movie and Batman Returns. Playing Deej, we have Dan Frischman, also in Return of the Jedi as a different character.
Okay.
He had a pretty decent recurring role as D.A. Vincent Daniels on the sitcom Night Court, which also is about to have a reboot sequel show
Night
coming out.
Court. Yeah.
We have Debbie Lee Carrington playing Weechi. She actually played Ramba in Return of the Jedi. Plus, she was in shows like Boston Legal, ER, and she played Doreen on the Drew Carey Show.
Wait, Boston Legal? She was
Yeah.
with Denny Crane?
No, no, no. I wondered that too. That character's name was Bethany. It was a different actress.
Okay.
We have Tony Cox as Whittle, also in Return of the Jedi, plus movies like Beetlejuice. He recurred as Arlo in Rescue Me and played Marcus in the Bad Santa films. And finally, Pam Griz as Shadu. She was in both Ewok films, Return of the Jedi, Under the Rainbow, and this I put in because it just is a weird little fact. She was a script supervisor on Dumbo's Circus. Do you remember Dumbo's Circus? It was
No.
like an early Disney Channel show, like late 80s, and it was like Dumbo just like hanging out in the circus, and it was all like oversized puppets. I loved it as a kid, and then I tried to show my son, and it's actually kind of terrifying the way these like giant puppets move around with their like dead glass eyes.
Isn't that how it always is
Look it
though? In
up.
the movies you saw when you were a kid, like, oh my gosh, I'm never
Yeah.
gonna show my children
Yeah.
this.
Oh, it's true. So that is the cast and crew of Caravan of Courage. Steve, do you want to take us into this masterpiece?
I am. I'm gonna read my own detailed plot,
Please.
and I gotta tell you, it was a difficult one to.
Should we just, I mean, I think we've already pretty much acknowledged this, but let's just get this out there. I did not enjoy watching this movie. Not like
How
not
many
even
nights did it take you to get through?
not even for nostalgia's sake. I wasn't like, oh, Ewoks. I was just like, oh my gosh, like checking the counter every few seconds. I did watch this on DVD because I have those DVDs from forever
That's
ago,
right,
and I was
yeah.
like, darn it, I'm going to use that DVD, and I did it. What about you?
Yeah.
I mean, what was your experience like? Did you enjoy watching it?
I made the mistake of starting it really late one night.
Mm.
Because I honestly didn't think it was as long as it was.
It's long, and you
You
feel
know,
it. You feel
and
it.
it's long. You really feel it. And there was a time where I was like, I could finish this, but I could also go to bed. And it took me 2 nights to watch it. And this movie, it's just a first act and a second act.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a bunch of stuff at the beginning, and then they're like, okay, let's go on a trip. And then it's a completely different movie.
I know. I
Now
think that
then
makes
it's
sense.
a traveling movie. Then it's
Yeah.
the Caravan of Courage.
Yeah, there it is.
Second half, you
Yeah.
know, and there it is, right? And so for me, I was just like, oh, how do I even write a plot for this? Because I was going in expecting to do it in 3 parts, and
I
I
know.
was like, there isn't. It's just 2 parts.
I know. Well, I'm excited to see what you got. Detailed plot, as written by Steve Rudd. Due to disobedience, Mace and Sindel Tuwani become separated from their family ship that's recently crash-landed on the forest moon of Endor. Fortunately for them, they aren't around when a large giant comes to inspect the crash site, probably seeing the ship go down. However, their parents, Jeremit and Katarine, are captured and taken by the giant while they are looking for the missing Mace and Sindel. Ewok father Deej, while looking for his own children, stumbles upon the Tuwani family wreck and finds the children hiding. Deej and the Ewok family bring Mace and Sindel back to their village, where Sindel, with the help of Wicket, attempts to convince Mace to make friends with the Ewoks. Instead, he's stubborn and attempts to escape the Ewoks' hospitality by running away, where they are introduced to a much more savage Endor than we are used to. Wicket and the family save Mace and Sindel, finally convincing Mace to ask the Ewoks to help them find their missing parents. The Ewoks agree to help them, though because the journey's dangerous, they form a fellowship of sorts and attempt to win the hearts of others along the way to join their caravan. Gorax the Giant is very dangerous, and only a courageous caravan of Ewoks, with the help of Mace and Sindel, could infiltrate and rescue the Tuwani parents. The caravan sneaks into the giant stronghold, and after a frightening encounter with spiders, the group's able to spring Jeremit and Katarine from their cage. Weechi, the eldest son of Deej, employs an Ewok strategy we've seen before to divert the giant so that the rest can escape. The caravan, now with the help of everyone, including a determined fairy, managed to defeat Gorax by tripping him and causing him to fall backwards into a deep crevasse. The group escaped successfully, though not without casualty. In order to slow the giant down so the rest could escape, Chukatrak, the Ewok woodcutter, is killed. Returning to the village, the Ewoks and the Tuwani celebrate their success.
In the words of Burl Ives,
Please.
reunited, the families enjoy the simple pleasures of being together, having learned something they already knew, that courage, loyalty, and love are the strongest forces of the universe.
Amen. So let's get into it. Let's get into it here. I mean,
I don't think there's enough Ewok development. I think that's what surprised me when
Yeah.
I watched it when I watched it not a second time, but now.
Yeah.
That I thought, wow, this is supposed to be all about the Ewoks, but it's really about Mace and Sindel.
Yeah, it is.
That's really what it's about. I mean,
Yeah.
because then Sindel's in the next movie too.
Right. It's hard to. I didn't like it. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to point out like things that I liked about it, and I mean, first of all, I feel like the costumes is like the Ewok costumes look like they got them from like a mall. They look like dingy, gross costumes. Whereas in Return of the Jedi, I mean, they really looked pretty
They're
real. I
really
mean, you
looking
really buy
authentic.
them as like,
Weird
you
thing to
know.
say. Yeah.
But I
Well,
thought the costumes were bad. I think a lot of my issue with this is the main character, Mace. I think he's not a kid that you want to root for, you know. He's just more of like a
Yeah.
petulant, like, you guys, I don't need your help, you know. And it's kind of like the whole movie. He's just not a very sympathetic like
Yeah.
lead. I don't really feel like rooting for him.
It felt like me that like a lot of things he said were things that I would say in my head,
Right.
not out loud. You know, like
Yeah.
Syndra, let's go. I don't want to stay with these weird little freaky bear things anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, you say that in your head.
Right, I know.
So it's like the lines felt very awkward, I think, very stiff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you said it. This is about Mason Sindel. It's not about the
Yeah.
Ewoks. And I feel like
Not.
if they would have flipped that, so you were seeing it from the Ewoks' perspective, I think that would have been much better.
Yeah, like
Because
the
as
Ewoks
it is-
helping the poor kids would have been perfect. Instead
Exactly.
it was like
Yeah.
Mace and Sindel were kind of taking
And
charge.
really, it's kind of Mace's story, you know?
It is Mace's story.
And I just
it really
think,
is. Yeah.
I don't think it's a dig on the actor. I mean, I think he's doing what he was told to do, you know, as far as like how he plays that character. But
And he's young.
yeah,
so,
he's young.
You know, it's
Sindel doesn't have a ton going on, and Mace is not a very compelling character. So you sort of like, I mean, you want them to find their parents, but like, it's just not a ton to really root for here.
yeah. And I think he did the best he can. You know, I think it was never, for me, it was never really like, ooh, like he's a bad actor. It was
Yeah.
always like, oh man, those lines, that
Yes.
like, oh, that, you know,
Yeah.
you know, I can imagine him like trying to say that and being like, man, there is no way I can make
Yeah.
this feel like it works with this scene.
You know, like
You know?
it was boring, as we discussed, and there was a lot of cringy moments, but I really feel like the things that I remember even from this watch was like when we switched to the Ewoks when they're looking for the kids, and I love that whole opening scene where they're trying to find the missing kids and they're setting up the glider, and then somebody accidentally like cuts the glider too soon and he
Yep.
goes shooting off, and he's flying around, finds the kid, drops the like all that stuff is great. You know, like give us more Ewoks, I feel like is the problem
Yeah.
here. You know, because anytime the focus kind of shifts to them, it becomes much better. And even though like the fairy tale section like gets a little weird, like it's at least interesting when they go find Logray and he pulls out his like coked out
Yeah, seeing him, I
Viewmaster
was
that
like,
he's
oh,
like,
yeah.
you know, he's got that like mirrored disc thing that's spinning around showing them their
Yeah.
parents and stuff. That was a very like what? Like
And then the prizes they gave him too,
Yeah.
it was just like 3 headdresses, a rock, a
Yeah.
crystal. Like it was just like, all right, they were just like,
I
is there
know.
anything
What do we have?
here? We forgot. We only have 3 headdresses, so do we have just crap laying around?
Jim,
Like,
check
oh,
your
yeah, I got
trunk.
rocks.
Do you have any rocks in your trunk? Because we need to fill
The lady
this
was
out.
like, I got crystals.
Yeah.
Perfect. Get your crystals.
Toss
You
them in.
know, like,
Toss them
that
in.
one-
They're just Ewoks.
that one's special for healing. That's a healing
Yeah.
crystal, so take care of it.
So
But yeah, it does take a weird fantasy turn.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that because that is exactly how I felt. I was just like, whoa, it's no longer sci-fi, it's become fantasy.
And that's, you know, that's not un-Star Wars. These Star Wars with, you know, the Force and mysticism and stuff always kind of
True,
borders
yeah.
on more like science fantasy. But this...
Especially in the expanded universe.
Oh,
like
definitely.
The Witches of Dathomir
For
and stuff
sure.
like that. Gets very, yeah, okay. No,
Yeah. So
I
like
think.
it's not that like the fantasy elements were out of place necessarily. It's just they weren't really integrated that well into this movie. I mean, I agree with you that it feels like 2 separate movies. Like you have sort of the Burl Ives, like, oh, the Ewoks are trying to find their missing kids. Let's watch them for a minute, you know. And then you get in the second act, and it's like,
That's kind
okay,
of what it's like.
now
It's
there
so
are like
true.
1,000 fairies everywhere, and they're gonna go and like fight a stop motion giant and like use magic, and I don't know. It's just it's incongruous and just not fun. That's what I'm.
The narration, I mean, he'd be like, and then Mace did not want to stay around, so
Right.
he decided to leave.
Yeah,
And then
it's like
literally the next scene is Mace going, Syndra, wake up. We need to get out of here. And
Right.
it's just like, they could just
I
done
know,
without
I
that
know,
narration and
I
just
know.
played the scene out.
you
And
just
I
want to
think
be like,
that's what
pump
fought it.
the brakes, Burl. We're able to use context clues.
Bro,
you
I'm
know?
just gonna, Burl, I'm gonna see it in 2 minutes. You don't need to tell me. You just ruined the
I
scene
know.
for me. What do you mean they're gonna escape?
It was nice because it was like watching the movie with a grandpa, you know, just sort of talking through the whole
No,
movie.
son,
What's
this is what
going on
happens
now? Just hold on, Burl. You're gonna see if you wait just a minute.
Well, they all
But he
think
couldn't.
the giant is
He couldn't.
dangerous, and it's a dangerous
I
journey.
don't know why they
So
thought they needed that.
I know.
It's like there was a bunch of different ideas for an Ewok movie, and they were just like, do them all. Because,
Yeah.
like, if we were going to just focus on the Ewoks and not have dialogue or not have much dialogue, then yeah, maybe you do need a narrator. But this was
Hmm.
pretty dialogue heavy, and so, like, you don't. And, like, if you're going to focus on a family crash landing there, okay, but then, like, maybe do that. It's just, it straddles a lot of lines, and it never quite
Yeah. Or
lands
don't
on.
and leave it mysterious, like what's going on.
Yeah,
Like, maybe not have them separated, but have it like, I thought that was a really weird thing to do, and I feel like it had to do with Mace's development as a character. That he was like, oh, I can do this on my own, blah blah blah, and then realizing that he needed help, right? So like,
yeah,
I figured, well, they probably were separated from their parents because Mace felt like he could do something on his own, like go collect firewood.
yeah.
But they didn't need to, I don't think they needed to do that, right? It just needed to be like, oh man, this giant's coming quick. Mace, Sindel, get inside the ship.
Yeah.
And then the giant comes and takes their parents and not the kids. That would have just
Well,
been fine because they found her hiding, right?
to me,
Just makes sense.
it just kind of reeks of like old people trying to write for kids, because I feel like, especially given the
Yeah.
time, like, whatever, like E.T., we're not that far away from like the Goonies and that kind of thing, where you're having like kid protagonists that are like cool and hip and self-sufficient.
Yeah.
I think that if Mace would have been like, all right, Sindel, don't worry, I'll take care of you. We're gonna team up with these Ewoks. Like if he would have been confident and smart and cool, like kids watching this would have been like, yeah, he's so cool. But instead, he's just like, no, I don't need any help. I have a mullet, and it just, hey, why, like
Well, that's why
it wasn't
I
fun.
loved Han Solo as a kid, because he
Yeah,
was a take charge. Oh, I'm gonna get what I want out of this, and then I'm gonna get out of here.
yeah,
Like he was more confident with the way he handled himself, and so you're right. Mace is not a good like. I want to be like him.
right. No,
You know.
and because of that, there's nobody in here that you really want to be like. And I had so much trouble tracking which one was Wicket in any given scene.
Right, because one of his brothers looked just like
Yes.
him, right? There was
Yeah,
a
and so
darker
it's sort
one.
of like, it wasn't even like Wicket was the lens, because you're just like, okay, well, now they
Yeah.
both have little brown hats on. No, one of them,
Yep.
stick a bow tie on
Wasn't
one of them. I need to know.
But it even wasn't. It really didn't spotlight Wicket a whole lot.
No, it
Only
didn't.
when there were Sindel scenes where did we have Wicket, pretty much, right? But other than that, it was always one of the brothers. It was always Deej.
And they
It was,
don't, they don't speak English in this, right? They didn't have dialogue, did they?
I don't think English died. They did when they would repeat things, right?
Okay.
They would say things and then they
Okay.
would like repeat them
Yeah.
like you were learning a language, right?
Yeah, because
Like,
there's a whole other thing about like
okay,
where
rock.
these are supposed to fit in a timeline. Like for a while,
Right.
they were saying it was between Empire and Return of the Jedi, and then there was also talk, apparently on the set, that it was set like 100 years later, just to avoid everything. And so again, because
But
of
it's still
that,
Wicket. They live that long. He's a baby for that long.
I
Like,
guess
I can't imagine
I
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But like
Ewok
because of
children are
that,
like 100 years old.
none of it really it doesn't, you can't really fit it in. I mean, you could just kind of say whatever.
I would think it's before
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
just based on like Mace's clothes. Like I see what they did. They try to make him look like pilot clothes.
Yeah, he's
like
got kind of an
pilot
X-wingy
clothing.
kind of vibe to it, doesn't he?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
orange jumpsuit with white puffiness to it.
It's for as heavily merchandised as Star Wars was, I didn't find a whole lot of like Ewok-y stuff. Like they put out the soundtracks
Yeah.
together on vinyl, after Battle of Endor came out, but I couldn't find like an action figure line for this, or like
Yeah.
Ewok stuffed animals. There was like a book, like each movie has a kind of an extended picture book that tells the story, but not even like a novelization or something. So
not even a novelization.
no, and it just seems like the whole point of doing this is to kind of get in on like the heels of Star Wars for much cheaper, and much more easily accessible, but to not then like merch it. I just don't really understand.
Right.
I don't know. I was really expecting this to be like a big nostalgia train for me, but instead it was
I
just like,
know. I remembered, or at least what's burned into my brain is all the Gorax scenes. I
okay, yeah.
remember them being captured. I remember the scenes of them being in that cage. That was like, I'm waiting for that scene. And I'm like, there it is. That's the scene that I remember when I was a kid.
I
So, that was, I mean, not the spiders. I completely forgot about them.
Yeah.
That terror dog thing, completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
Right. And so Gorax for me was the most memorable, and it's funny because that scene where they fight that terror dog or whatever that thing is feels like Jason and the Argonauts.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
that's
Or
the
like the
quality of it.
original like Land of the Lost or something. Yeah,
That's exactly.
and this
Yeah,
was late in the stop motion game. They didn't do a lot of stop motion after this.
yeah, it was pretty raw.
Yeah, there's no excusing it. I mean, it is bad, but that was at least like nostalgic for me. Like it stood out as not gelling with the rest of Star Wars, but I enjoyed seeing the classic stop motion.
The forest looked good. I
Yeah.
mean, they did a good job with the interactions of how that worked and stuff like that. Like that's what I always thought throughout the movie when they were in the forest and all those wide shots. I was like, oh, cool. I mean, I'd like to be there. You get that feeling, of wanting to be in that forest where there's giant trees and very little mid-sized vegetation.
Yeah.
Right, where that would block your view. So it's pretty much redwoods that are 12 feet wide and then some ferns.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, no,
it's such a bizarre place to be. There's nothing in between.
I'm gonna have to wait for Battle for Endor because there's many things that I'm picturing specifically, and they were not here. So I'm hopeful that they weren't just a fever dream, but are in fact in Battle for Endor.
Right.
Gosh, it's hard to pick. But what was your Ichiwawa moment?
For me, the Ichiwawa moment was seeing the ingenuity of the Ewoks get Mace up into the cage. Right. So they take the Gorax's axe and they do like a seesaw type thing, and the Ewoks jump down on it, see if he can fly up. And then seeing Weechi do the same thing that the Ewok did to the Imperial Scouts. I was like, perfect. Here it is.
Well, you remember my Ichiwawa moment from Return of the Jedi was the gliders. When they go through and they're dropping the rocks with the gliders. So as soon as we start this and the Ewoks are setting up the glider again, I was like, yeah, Ewok glider, woo! So that was pretty sweet. I also liked when Mace falls in he touches the water and gets sucked in, and it's like that whole magic thing where he can't get out, and they keep trying to drop him a rope and stuff. I thought that was a cool moment, so I got to give it that.
What's funny? That's a very period scene, right?
Yeah.
That reminds me of like the Never-Ending Story, stuff like that, where kids would just get sucked in or something like that. So I was just like, whoa, my kids are never gonna want to touch water again if they watch this movie. There's just a couple things, but no, that's good. How many yub nubs do you give this one?
Boy. I got next to nothing good to say about it. I mean, for those few things that I was like, I liked the glider. I liked Logray's weird Viewmaster, but I don't have much good to say. I guess I'm gonna give it 2 because I didn't hate it or anything. I just it wasn't even nostalgic fun. So I'm gonna give it 2 out of 5. What about you?
Yeah. I was going to give it 2 out of 5 as well.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think it's an absolutely terrible movie. It's not a train wreck. There are some really fun parts and really exciting parts. I forgot about that water scene, and that is a pretty exciting part. Like, oh man, like what is happening, and then that was just a crazy scene for me. So, and I'm also rocking the whole, I think I expected it to be way better than it was simply because of that nostalgia, that childhood nostalgia, that like, oh yeah, I liked it when I was a kid, so I'm going to love it now. And so I don't think it was terrible, but I think I'm coming down a little hard on it, that I feel a little bit gypped that it wasn't as good as I remember.
Well, over on, elsewhere on the Radio Meanwhile Network, previously on X-Men, Hillary was just doing the commentary on Deadpool 2, and I guest hosted that one with her. And we were talking about, do you watch the Deadpool movies if you're going to watch all of the X-Men movies? And she kind of turned it back on me, and she was like, well, would you watch the Ewok movies if you were going to do like a Star Wars marathon? And I think before this, I might have said, yeah, I'd watch the Ewok movies. Now, after watching it, I'm kind of like, I don't really think so. They're just so different. It just doesn't. It just doesn't feel like
you're going to watch Rogue One. and Solo.
Yeah.
You're gonna watch those,
Yeah.
but this is just
It's a different
where do you
thing.
fit it in too?
It's
I mean,
just
you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to fit it in, I guess, after Return of the Jedi before you start getting into good content again.
I knew that it was a different thing, but I guess I just thought that it still felt like the Endor from Return of the Jedi. Like, I thought it was still going to feel like those scenes felt, and it didn't. But I know, just because I remember the plot of Battle for Endor, I know that the stakes are higher in that one. I know that it's darker, it's a little creepier, and so I'm looking forward to discussing that one. And we're going to have our first guest on the show. I'm looking forward to this. We're going to be joined by Crystal Storm. Crystal's a sci-fi and thriller author, and she's a creative content producer. She's got a great online presence, so if you're not familiar with her, go find her on Twitter or right on her website, Crystal Storm. She and I were on an episode of Three Nice Things, which was one of the original Radio Meanwhile shows where we'd watch a bad movie, and we'd each have to come up with 3 nice things to say about it. And she and I and Eric Nichols watched Battlefield Earth with Travolta. It was, so it's like Crystal and I have been through war together. I feel like we have a permanent bond after having watched Battlefield Earth. The episodes are still available, so if you go over the Dusk vs. Week YouTube page or just go to YouTube and search 3 Nice Things Battlefield Earth, you can hear me, Crystal, and Eric talk about Battlefield Earth, and it was a rough time. So hopefully this battle will be more fun.
Yes. Different battle. Yeah. Different battle, different battlefield, different planet. So.
And if you have comments, if you remember things about Battle for Endor, we'd love to hear from you over on Facebook or Twitter. So let us know that. But other than that, we'll see you next time with Battle for Endor.
Closing out, my name is Steve Rudd.
You got it. Just right.
I figured.
Just right.
I just had to nail it to the wall right there.
I think you did. Yep.
This Endorian Life was brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. You can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Twitter or Facebook at Endorian Life. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show wherever you get your podcasts.